The council chamber on Ashtari Prime wasn't built for tension, it was built for pageantry. Tall arched ceilings of starstone glass framed swirling cosmic vistas, and every voice carried smoothly in its engineered acoustics. No weapons were allowed within 3 kilometers of the chamber. And still, when the human walked in, 23 species instinctively flinched. He wasn't large by human standards. Barely 6 feet, lean-built, posture upright but not confrontational. His uniform wasn't combat issue, though the insignia of the Terran Interstellar Diplomatic Corps sat stitched over his chest with crisp precision. No armor. No sidearm. Just a small black case in one hand and a strange calm in his gaze. "Who is that?" hissed Counselor Vrynal of the Vakhtari, an avian species known for their political tact and cowardice. "That," replied the Threnai ambassador, "is the reason we're still alive." The human approached the central speaking dais, where an arc of tiered seats towered overhead like a judgmental amphitheater. He offered no bow, no groveling declaration of fealty. Just a small nod to the chair drone. "Envoy Marcus Ryland. Terran Union. I understand you requested our surrender." The room exploded with languages, chittering, screeching, buzzing, mechanical syllables translated midair by linguistic drones. Outrage. Dismay. Some laughter. The representative from the Zarkith swarm bared rows of serrated mouthplates and clicked rapidly at his adjutants. Ryland stood perfectly still. The chair drone's 3 optic stalks twisted forward, attempting something like a courteous incline. "Envoy Ryland. The Galactic Council has convened an emergency session due to, how shall we say this delicately, unprecedented aggression from your species. For the safety of all sentient life, Earth's expansion efforts must cease immediately." "Earth's not expanding," Marcus replied. "We were attacked." The holographic sphere behind him pulsed to life. It showed the burning remains of Outpost Meridian 9, a civilian mining colony. Debris fields circled the asteroid base, dotted with escape pods and emergency transponders. "We found pieces of Zarkith bioships in the debris, and Threxian war tags embedded in our hulls. This wasn't an accident." Gasps rippled across the chamber. The Zarkith ambassador's mandibles tightened. The Threxian envoy, a robed, photosynthetic lifeform, shifted colors toward defensive red. The chair drone's central eye dilated. "Your people responded with force." Marcus inclined his head. "We responded with precision." He tapped a button. The next image wasn't of fire and blood, but cold, clinical stills. Strategic strikes. Disabled warships. Blocked communication nodes. Entire armadas simply vanished or forced to retreat, with minimal casualties. "You sent diplomats," muttered a Zeltari observer in disbelief, "and they burned fleets to the ground." "No," Marcus said evenly. "We sent Marines. Then I arrived. 2 months earlier." The asteroid known as Darnex Theta spun silently in the unclaimed zone between Threxian and human space. On paper it was a dead rock. In reality, it was a smuggler's haven, data exchange hub and black market auction house with no loyalty to anyone except whoever paid the docking fee. Marcus Ryland was there with one objective: make contact with a Vernari intelligence broker named Korleth and recover the location of missing Terran colonists. What he got was a knife at his throat before he even reached the 3rd checkpoint. "I have 3 more just like me waiting in the tunnels," growled the insectoid mercenary, breath hot with ammonia. Marcus didn't blink. "Then you're wasting manpower." In one motion he stepped forward, shifting his weight into the mercenary's body. The blade slid past his neck harmless. His elbow found the alien's thorax. Crunch. The second attacker from behind didn't make a sound, just dropped as Ryland's foot caught his knee backward. A flash-stun grenade sailed overhead, but Marcus had already slid behind a support pylon. By the time the smoke cleared, Korleth stood in the corridor, flanked by 2 robotic guards. "You're early," the Vernari hissed. "You're late," Marcus countered. "Now hand over the data." "Marine Corps training?" Korleth asked as they moved through the neon-lit depths of the station. "I thought this was a diplomatic visit." "It is," Ryland replied. "Diplomatic Marines." The Vernari looked incredulous. "That's not a real thing." "You're talking to one." They reached a private negotiation chamber deep below the station's core. Sealed, soundproofed, and designed for discretion. Korleth handed over a data crystal. Marcus slid it into his wrist comp and let the information stream. Colony 14B, gone. Civilian biosigns scrubbed. No recorded evacuations. "What do you want in return?" Marcus asked. Korleth leaned back, mandibles twitching. "I want a name erased from a Terran bounty list." Marcus didn't look up. You bombed a refugee station. Half were children. I did worse before breakfast, the Vernari spat. But that's not what this is about. I gave you what you wanted. Now we talk terms. Marcus stood. You misunderstand. I wasn't offering a trade. I just needed confirmation. The room went cold. You're not here to negotiate? Korleth asked slowly. Oh, I am, Marcus said. But this isn't a transaction. It's a warning. He turned toward the door, activating his comlink. Package confirmed. Target acquired. You're clear to proceed. Seconds later, Korleth's entire account network collapsed. Ships he'd stashed across 4 systems were tagged, locked down, and redirected. Bounty hunters in 3 sectors simultaneously received updated priorities. You bastard, the alien screamed, lunging. Marcus didn't flinch. He wasn't carrying a weapon. He didn't need to. The door opened behind him. 2 Marines in ghost armor stepped in. Korleth stopped cold. This is diplomacy? He rasped. Marcus nodded. We tried peace talks. You made a choice. Present-day, council chamber. This council has not authorized war, the Slyari diplomat interjected, her voice high and musical. The Terran response is disproportionate to the offense. Marcus looked up. 1,700 civilians. Farmers. Miners. Children. That's the offense. You let predators into your house, fed them, armed them, then acted surprised when they tore out someone's throat. He stepped away from the podium, letting silence follow him. I came to speak, he said. Not to threaten. Not to intimidate. But to remind you of something you've all forgotten. He opened the case he had carried in. Inside were 2 items. The first was a small medallion. The Terran peace emblem. An open hand holding a globe. The symbol of Earth's commitment to diplomatic expansion. The second item made the room go quiet. It was a coin. A dull black disc with a crimson line etched down the middle. The room erupted in terrified whispers. Is that a 0 coin? Impossible. No human has ever brought one into council space. The 0 coin was a Terran signal. When presented by a diplomatic marine, it meant negotiations had ended. Peace had been refused. Earth would no longer restrain itself. And retaliation would not be diplomatic, it would be devastating. Marcus placed the coin on the table. Every species here feared what would happen if Earth started wars, he said quietly. But maybe you should have feared what it meant when Earth stopped trying to avoid them. He closed the case again, leaving both items inside. I'm still here, he said. I still believe we can fix this. But that belief is a candle in the wind. And some of you are already reaching for the storm. No one moved. Not the Zarkith. Not the Threxian. Not even the Kravel, who had openly broadcasted footage of Terran civilians being dissected in research tanks. Because in that moment, no one saw Marcus Ryland as a diplomat. They saw the man who trained with peace in one hand and precision warfare in the other. A Marine in plain clothes. A soldier who had been taught to negotiate. And they realized something terrifying. He wasn't the most dangerous human. He was the first one they sent. The chamber remained in stunned silence for several long seconds after Marcus Ryland closed his case. The 0 coin still rested on the council table. A sliver of dark metal, unremarkable to the untrained eye, but to those who understood what it meant, it was a signal more potent than a fleet formation on their doorstep. Ryland didn't move. Didn't gloat. He simply let the silence steep in every nervous mind. Across the chamber, diplomats subtly shifted. Translated whisper feeds between aides became frantic. Plans unraveling, alliances recalculating. It wasn't just the coin. It was what it symbolized. Humanity had brought the hammer. And Marcus Ryland was the last nail keeping it holstered. The Threxian ambassador, still flushed in defensive red hues, broke the silence. Is this a declaration of war? Marcus' head tilted. If it were, I wouldn't be here. He let that hang a beat too long. The fact that I'm standing here, without armor, without escort, with both hands visible, means Earth still believes in the table. But that coin will stay where it is until someone gives me a reason to flip it. The Kravel delegate, its massive armor-scaled frame draped in ceremonial vines, clicked its tusks in frustration. And if we refuse to recognize your authority? If we claim this show of force is bluff? Ryland didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. You're welcome to test the theory. But I'd advise against it. Because the last empire that called us a bluff is currently being evacuated in lifeboats from 6 shattered moons. You want to debate our legitimacy while standing in the blast radius? Be my guest. No one interrupted him again. Aboard the VSS Judicator. Orbiting Council space, 3 hours earlier. Colonel Dara Voss folded her arms, watching the data feed scroll across the main holotable. Satellite recon. Long-range comm intercepts. Heat signatures. He's walking in with what exactly? Just a briefcase, replied Lieutenant Nakai. The coin's inside. He'll deploy it only if he deems the Council response inadequate. Deems? That's subjective. That's why we sent Ryland. The man is a scale. Voss grunted. The others don't like it. Special Warfare Command wanted to bring an entire Ghost Division into the sector. We've got one, ma'am. They're just cloaked. Voss raised a brow. You serious? The lieutenant nodded. Vanguard 6 is already groundside. Ryland's our diplomat. But he's also our tripwire. God help them if they trip it, she muttered. Council chamber, present. The Slyari representative, Ambassador Linka, leaned forward slowly, her long fingers steepled beneath her delicate chin. Envoy Ryland. If what you say is true, if Earth is not posturing but offering genuine peace, then why the escalation? Why answer aggression with such terrifying precision? Marcus turned to her, but this time there was a flicker of something in his expression. Not anger. Not even frustration. Something colder. Something old. You want to understand humans, Ambassador? He said softly. Then understand this, we don't start fights. But we remember every damn time someone made us finish one. He paused, then stepped toward the display, where the image of Outpost Meridian 9 still hovered, twisting slowly in a field of ruin. We were warned when we reached the stars. That we were loud, impulsive, prone to violence. We agreed. We studied. We held back. We tried to fit into your order. But while we were learning to be better, some of you were testing how far you could push us. He pointed to the spinning wreckage. That's what happens when the test ends. Backstage, just beyond the viewing perimeter of the chamber, the hidden sensors flickered. One of the cloaked commandos, Vanguard Axis Recon Lead, watched from the shadows, perched on the rafter-like high frames of the massive hall. Ryland just deployed the coin. Confirmed, came the hushed voice over the neural link. Hold position. No escalation unless triggered. Copy. Then a pause. A soft whisper barely audible. They're starting to believe him. The Council began to fracture the way empires do when faced with truth they can't deny. A Krenari trader prince stood and issued a demand for protected trading lanes with Earth. The Athari Enclave motioned for a neutral investigation into the attack on Meridian 9. Even a few Threxian junior envoys began shifting their stance, some out of guilt, others pure survival instinct. Marcus observed it all without comment. And that's when the storm arrived. A new delegate entered the chamber, without warning, without authorization. The chamber doors banged open as 6 black-armored guards marched inward, flanking a towering brute in glistening red battleplate. Council security, shouted the chair drone. This chamber is restricted. Silence, growled the armored figure. His voice was deep, processed, weaponized. I am Varnak Thal, warlord of the Red Crescent Fleet, commander of the Five-Blooded Pact. I speak not with words but with power. And I call for the immediate detainment of the Terran emissary. Dozens of aides gasped. Several counselors recoiled. Marcus didn't move. You're not a delegate, Marcus said. No, the warlord sneered. I'm a response. You think your coin frightens me? We bled in your wars before your species discovered combustion. You are a child in armor. Marcus stared at him for a long, long moment. Then he reached slowly into his case. And this time he didn't pull out the coin. He pulled out a letter. Parchment. Human standard script with diplomatic verification seals. Authorization Echo November 0, he said. By order of the Terran Union Assembly, and in compliance with Article 7 of the Galactic Sentience Accord, I am hereby revoking Warlord Varnak Thal's diplomatic protections. The chamber froze. Marcus turned toward the shadows above the chamber's ceiling. Vanguard 6. Confirm kill window. A soft voice echoed from nowhere. Confirmed. Stand down, Marcus said. But maintain lock. Varnak Thal roared. You dare aim weapons at me inside this sanctum? You entered with armed guards, Marcus replied. Broke protocol. Issued threats. That revoked your rights. Then he stepped closer. Here's the truth, warlord, he said, voice low, lethal. Humans can be kind. We can be patient. We build peace. But you force our hand and we become something else entirely. You think we're dangerous now? He leaned in. You haven't met our diplomats in full war mode. The chamber's mood had shifted fully now. No longer disbelief. No longer outrage. Something far heavier. Fear. Respect. And for the first time in generations, understanding. Because Marcus Ryland wasn't there to impress them. He was there to warn them. He turned back toward the podium. "The coin stays," he said. "Until your fleets withdraw from neutral zones. Until our citizens are returned. Until war criminals are named and handed over. Until the council proves it's not just a stage for tyrants in silk robes." He walked toward the chamber exit, his footfalls echoing in dead silence. "And one more thing," he said over his shoulder. "I came alone because I still believe in the table." He paused at the threshold. "But don't mistake that for weakness." Then he left. And behind him, 23 species sat in stunned silence, realizing they had not just met a human. They had met a diplomatic marine. And Earth had thousands more. Marcus Ryland's footsteps faded into the long, curved corridor that led away from the Grand Assembly. Behind him, the chamber remained frozen, paralyzed not by brute force, but by the one thing this galaxy feared more than fleets. A human who spoke with authority and walked like a blade unsheathed. Vanguard 6 shadowed him from above and below, unseen. But Ryland felt their presence, just as he felt the heat of the warlord's fury still simmering behind the sealed chamber doors. And yet he smiled. Because the coin stayed. Because the silence he left behind wasn't confusion or mockery anymore. It was recalibration. 2 hours later, high orbit over Central Council Sector. Aboard VSS Judicator. Colonel Dara Voss stood at the viewing platform, arms behind her back, watching as ships from over a dozen species repositioned their orbits. Some drifted quietly away from Terran satellites. Others reflagged vessels to civilian registry, hoping to mask military intent. A few retreated entirely. Fear in motion. Behind her, the command crew whispered over encrypted channels. A soft ping announced the approach of another officer. "Ryland's shuttle is inbound, ma'am." "No incidents." Voss nodded once. "Prep med deck 2. I want a scan." "Medical?" "He's not wounded." "Emotionally, maybe." No one walks into that chamber and walks out the same. Not even Ryland. The lieutenant hesitated. "You think the council will back off now?" Voss turned to face the stars again. "They're not backing off. Not yet. They're calculating. But they've tasted something now, something they thought humans buried a long time ago." She tapped the armored window once. Conviction. Elsewhere, on board a hidden listening station near the Ember Verge. Location, classified. Inside a room of cold crystal and living circuitry, for beings watched a replay of the assembly proceedings. Holographic projections flickered as Ryland's voice rang through again. Clear, defiant, calm. One of the observers, a spectral form of pale blue smoke within a containment suit, leaned forward. "Fascinating," it whispered. "This one does not bluff." His heartbeat remained steady even as he challenged a warlord. A quadrupedal creature made of glassy plates and glowing neural veins clicked its mandibles. "They sent a soldier as a diplomat. That's no accident." A third, masked in flowing bronze, spoke with a voice like wind chimes. "Then we must ask, what message was Earth truly sending?" The fourth figure, tall, robed in obsidian, weighed the words carefully. Then it activated a new projection. Footage timestamped decades earlier, Earth's first interstellar war. A Terran colony burned. Ships fell. Then retaliation. Human forces didn't just push back. They erased the attacker's orbital fleet in under an hour. The footage showed precision strikes, planetary evacuation corridors, refugee triage ships escorting even enemy civilians to safety, and then the detonation of the largest ship killer ever deployed by a non-hegemonic world. The attack was strategic. Surgical. No civilian casualties. But absolute. The robed figure finally spoke. "Humanity does not wage war to win. They wage war to end it." The room fell silent. Then, almost reverently, what if Ryland's presence means they're preparing to end something again? Aboard the VSS Judicator, later that night, Marcus Ryland sat alone in a small observation chamber near the dorsal hull, staring out at the stars. A cup of something warm, caffeinated, heavily dosed, sat untouched beside him. He wasn't sleeping. His mind was pacing. When Voss entered, he didn't look up. "You're supposed to be in medical," she said. They didn't find anything new. Still human. Still annoying. Voss pulled up a seat beside him. "You lit a fire in there, Ryland?" "I didn't light it," he murmured. "I just showed them it was already burning." She raised an eyebrow. The Meridian 9 massacre didn't scare them. It tested them. They didn't come together to help. They sent envoys to ask how many ships we'd lost and whether that made us pliable. He rubbed his eyes. They're not used to consequences. Voss sighed. You gave them one. Not enough. He finally turned to face her. They won't stay divided forever. Some of them will align. Especially the ones who think they can copy our tactics. Mirror our culture. I'd bet money Varnak's already negotiating in back channels. Voss leaned forward. You think they'll hit us again? I think they'll try to avoid war by using the same weapons they think we use. Fear, intimidation, symbols. He tapped the table. But they'll miss the core. We don't scare people to win. We scare people because we don't break. And they don't understand why. Council subnet, encrypted dark channel relay. Transmission intercepted, origin unknown. Varnak will rally the outer blocks. The humans will never risk full escalation. They still trade too heavily with Central Worlds. Deploy assets to secondary colonies. Capture key Terran contractors. Pressure them. Do not provoke Ryland directly. He is marked but shielded. There are rumors of others like him. If Earth begins deploying multiple diplomatic marines, we may lose the next century. Earth, Terran High Command Geneva Corps. General Imani Rourke reviewed the transmission from the listening post. She didn't speak for several minutes. The other War Council members, military, diplomatic, intelligence, waited. Finally she stood. Begin operations. Heads turned. One admiral leaned forward. Authorization for what, ma'am? She turned the transmission screen to face the room. They're planning countermeasures. Soft strikes. Strategic abductions. They think we're reliant on Ryland. She narrowed her eyes. It's time they learn the truth. She tapped a sequence on her console. A single word flashed across the command systems. Activate, first flame. VSS Judicator, hours later. Marcus Ryland awoke from a shallow sleep as his comlink chirped. Not standard ops channel. Not Vanguard 6. This code was higher. First flame. He accepted the call. A secure voice spoke. Ryland. Confirm identity. Confirmed. First flame active. Phase 1 initiated. You are required for integration briefing. Ryland sat up, rubbing the tension from his temples. You're really doing it? General Rourke says the diplomatic era is about to enter its next phase. She wants peace, and she's sending soldiers to build it. Ryland blinked. How many? There was a pause. 47. Across 27 systems. All trained under your doctrine. All with a coin. Ryland stood slowly. That many coins on the board? You better be damn sure the galaxy's ready. The voice was quiet. They're not. But we are. Council territory, 3 days later. In a quiet trade hub orbiting the twin stars of Perix Delta, a delegation of merchant lords met for clandestine talks. One of them, a sly-skinned Orvosian named Tiratek, glanced at a Terran trade proposal and laughed. They sent a marine to negotiate supply routes. Can you believe that? What next? Tanks handling border disputes. The laughter died quickly. Because someone was approaching the table. A human. Not Ryland. Not armored. But still. Military. The man placed a small case on the table. Opened it. Inside was not one but 2 coins. He didn't say anything. Just looked at them. Then turned to leave. Only one word, spoken quietly over his shoulder. Options yours. The silence in the chamber wasn't heavy, it was hollow. Like the vacuum left behind after an explosion, where sound and certainty had both been stripped away. The human had left. The case remained. 2 coins, identical to the one Ryland had dropped days earlier at the Grand Assembly, lay on the polished obsidian table between 5 of the most connected trade barons in the quadrant. They glinted softly in the starlight pouring through the wide-paneled observation window. No alarms. No threats. Just a choice. And a message. Tiratek, whose laughter had mocked the moment minutes earlier, now found his throat dry and his thoughts spiraling. They're multiplying, he whispered. This was supposed to be a bluff. One man. A show. The youngest baron, a data-sculpted Neuralite interfaced directly with 4 local networks, responded flatly. Humans don't bluff with symbols. They build them. Then they deploy them. A heavy silence passed between them before the eldest among them, a Shulkar who had lived through 3 major wars, reached a withered claw toward the case. He took a coin. Not as a trophy, but as a signal. I'll negotiate. No one argued. VSS Judicator, command chamber, 17 hours later. Marcus Ryland stood before a tactical projection mapping more than 36 system nodes. Each was marked with updated diplomatic traffic, fleet motion vectors, and small, flickering red or green icons, signifying threat levels and human deployment status. Colonel Dara Voss approached from the side. The coins are spreading faster than anticipated. 12 confirmations in the last 8 hours. 5 full agreements. 3 reversals on council alignment. And at least one enemy warlord is calling for a summit. Ryland didn't smile. He simply nodded once. It's not because of the coins. No. It's what they represent. We didn't just send soldiers. We sent a choice. And they've gone so long without being given one, they forgot how heavy it feels. Voss folded her arms. They're afraid you'll flip the table again. No, Ryland said. They're afraid we won't have to. Sector K, outside the Varnak Concordate. In deep space, lit only by the pulse of a dying neutron star, 3 warships of the Varnak class loomed over a Terran trade outpost. No formal violation, just proximity. Just presence. It was posturing. The kind that worked on other species. The kind that didn't work anymore. A lone vessel exited hyperspace near the station. No battleship profile. No heavy cruiser. Just a retrofitted diplomatic corvette bearing the United Earth Diplomatic Corps sigil. A signal pinged the warships. Text only. Care to talk, or should I leave the coin right here in the dark? There was no reply for 45 seconds. Then the Varnak flagship powered down weapons. One by one the others followed. Council chamber, emergency session. The warlord was not pleased. Varnak's armored fists hammered the obsidian table with enough force to crack it, twice. This is psychological warfare, he roared. They've infected the outer systems with memes and coins. Our soldiers are being treated like pirates. Our agreements are being rewritten. A diplomat from the Kalshari Collective, usually cautious, responded bluntly. Because they're offering peace and protection, without demanding subservience. Varnak pointed a clawed digit at the chamber's central display, where a map of recent diplomatic reversals painted a grim trend. Systems flipping neutral or pro-Terran without a single weapon being fired. They are militarizing diplomacy. No, said a calm voice from the back. All heads turned. It was Arel Suthari, the archivist of the council. One of the oldest and most respected among them. They are diplomatizing military logic. A concept we failed to grasp. The chamber quieted. Suthari continued, eyes distant. Humans understand something we've forgotten. Real peace only works when built with those capable of real war. Earth, Geneva Corps Terran High Command. General Rourke watched the reports unfold across her table like a mosaic of strategy, psychology, and cultural leverage. Beside her stood Admiral Senji, the strategist who developed the first flame program. They're trying to find Ryland's successors, he said. Trying to pin the effect to the man. But it's too late. Rourke nodded. The symbols detached from the source. That's the real weapon. She tapped the coin in her hand. It's not about soldiers. It's about standards. Marcus Ryland, en route to Nyrian Diplomatic Summit. The shuttle thrummed quietly as it slipped past the light crust of Neria's third moon. Ryland sat across from a young Marine, Lieutenant Sarah Klein, one of the first flame deployments. She was watching him with a mix of awe and unease. Why me? She asked finally. Ryland arched a brow. You were trained. You passed evaluation. But I'm not you. That's the point. He leaned forward, placing a coin in her palm. I didn't build this to be me. I built this so you could be you, in a galaxy that respects what we stand for. Sarah turned the coin in her hand slowly. I'm not afraid to fight, she said. Ryland smiled. Then make them afraid of the day you choose not to. Nyrian Summit, main floor. Representatives of 12 species stood around a long, curved table, tense but curious. The Terran envoy, Klein, stepped forward and did something no one expected. She didn't drop the coin. She held it. I'm not Ryland, she said calmly. And I'm not here to intimidate. I'm here to offer a new path. You don't have to join Earth. You don't have to surrender autonomy. You just have to decide if fear is still your currency, or if you're ready to invest in something else. A silence followed. Then a soft voice answered, What would that be? Klein held up the coin, not to drop it but to offer it. Mutual resolve. And one by one, species that had once feared humanity began to listen. Epilogue, Grand Assembly revisited. Weeks later, Ryland returned to the chamber that had once buzzed with scorn and contempt. This time the crowd didn't laugh. They stood. Not in fear. But in respect. Some held coins. Some wore them as pendants. A few had crafted their own versions, symbols of allegiance, not submission. Ryland said only 2 sentences. We came to talk before we fought. Not because we're weak, but because we're strong enough to know when not to fight. If that makes you nervous, good. He paused. That means you're finally starting to understand us. Thanks for reading. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the Void Narratives for more long-form HFY sci-fi that puts humanity at the center of the stars, and at the edge of diplomacy, war, and legend.